Jason, how is all of this feeding through into store or generic brands? Are we seeing that trade down effect?
We are seeing it, Julie. And we can debate, is this a sign of overall consumer weakness, or is this a sign of a secular trend that was in place before COVID? I would argue it's the latter. I grew up, and my generation grew up in an era where private label was kind of cheap knockoff products. The younger generation, the millennial generation, who's now forming households and pushing the largest basket down the grocery aisle, grew up in a very different environment where private label doesn't have the same stigma. Meanwhile, retailers have really made it a priority to push their own brands to engender loyalty within the store. Those dynamics were disrupted during COVID, primarily because of supply. Those disruptions are behind us, and we're now seeing, once again, this secular trend of the rise of store brands or retailers' own brands or private label, whatever you want to call it. That trend is back, and it's back in force, which makes it even harder if you're one of these branded guys operating in the center of the store. The consumption is shrinking there. Consumers, you're losing share of stomach to perimeter fresh, real foods. And then within those categories, you're losing share to the retail brands. It has a compounding effect that makes the businesses even more challenging.
And so, Jason, we've been looking through, of course, your coverage list just to see, where you're a little bit more bullish and perhaps on the other end of that spectrum, very bearish. So what are some of your top picks as of right now as you look across the environment, think about what we've seen from the consumer over the course of back to school season and even what that's projected to look like as we get into the holiday season?
Yeah. Good question. So you mentioned I've got a bearish bent. I probably have more sell ratings than you're going to find with most sell-side analysts out there. So we have a lot of conviction in some of our sales that are suffering from all these dynamics I talked about, particularly U.S.-centric center store food companies like General Mills, like Campbell Soup, like Smucker's. They've underperformed. I think their businesses are really going to be challenged. I see no catalyst for relative re-rating or outperformance going forward. So we remain very comfortable there. On the flip side, we want more global-facing businesses. Emerging market consumers holding up really well, especially in Latin America, pockets of Southeast Asia. There's real growth there. So I want some of my more global-reaching companies who can tap into that growth. I'm going to lean into Mondelez, the snack food, the maker of Oreo, Cadbury, et cetera, really thriving in this environment, and I expect it to continue to thrive. And on the personal care side of my coverage universe, we're going to lean into Colgate, at least amongst our large cap. We got some nice small cap names, mid cap names with some really good product cycles. One in particular would be Bellring Brands, where they make protein shakes, active nutrition. It's absolutely on fire, more capacity, cost relief on the come. So I've got names I like, but at the same time, on the other side, I got some companies with some real pressures that I would look to avoid.